Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I am Garrett Price. Oh, did you laugh? You were laughing at me, weren't you, just now?
I was smiling at you, and I'm Pete.
You're just such a good smiler.
Yeah.
All right.
Smile.
All right. So this is Pete. He's going to be joining me again. He did such a good job yesterday that I thought, why don't we bring him back?
Yep.
So we're going to do it again. Pete and I are going to be breaking down, I would say day 3, but this isn't entirely true. We're mostly breaking down the 4th and 5th round. Because just to be completely honest, looking at rounds 6 and 7, yes, there's a couple players that are somewhat interesting, but they didn't land in super juicy spots, or the more juicy spots are guys that I'm not super interested in. So there wasn't a lot really after the 4th and 5th round to get overly excited about, which in most drafts there's not. You know, even 4th and 5th can be a bit of a stretch at times. So we're going to break down mostly the 4th and 5th round and kind of just move on from there. So Peter, who are some names from the 4th and 5th round that you think that we need to make sure we discuss?
Well, let's talk about the Panthers.
Okay.
Drafting J.T. Sanders with the first pick of the 4th round. What do you think about that? Yeah,
Jatavian, he's an interesting tight end. So obviously this is a team that really does need a tight end. They don't have a lot in that room. They added Xavier Legette earlier on in the draft. Now they added Sanders. They're obviously putting forth an honest effort to get him more receiving options. They got Theo Johnson earlier in the offseason. They still have Adam Thielen. So it's becoming a solid room full of players. I don't know that I think there's a reason that he fell to day 4. I know many people had him as the number 2 tight end. I think there are some limitations to his game, but he is at least a good vertical threat catching the football. I do have some concerns in like some of the movement skills, but I think as far as a vertical threat with good hands, I think that's true of Sanders.
Yeah. So next pick, a faller.
Yeah.
But still
Troy Franklin.
A very fun name. Yeah, Troy Franklin gets drafted by the Broncos. How are you feeling?
Yeah, you always feel bad for guys that slide quite a bit, and he was somebody at times was mocked in the first round. So to see him fall all the way to round 4, I think was surprising for a lot of mock drafters. I was never particularly high on him. I even had some hot takes that were more negative towards Troy Franklin, and our nerd score kind of reflected that. We had him, I want to say, at like wide receiver 16. So
16, yep.
So we had him fairly low. But all that being said, I actually like this for the Broncos in this range. If you're the Broncos, you get a wide receiver that's obviously familiar with the rookie quarterback you just drafted, that can do certain things very well. I don't know that he's ever going to have enough of a well-rounded game to be a consistent dynasty threat, maybe more of a best ball guy, because I do think there'll be games where he gets 3 catches for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think like those days will happen. Yeah. But I think there's also going to be plenty of games where he gets 3 catches for 26 yards and no touchdown, and you're going to be pretty disappointed. So I think he is going to be a good vertical field stretcher, but I think that's about it. So I would temper my expectations a little bit for him, but I think value-wise, I think the Broncos got a good pick here in the 4th round.
So Polk or Franklin in rookie drafts?
That's a good one, Peter. I am slightly leaning Polk at the moment, but I don't feel great about it. It's very close.
Is it kind of like the tiebreaker of Drake May and Bo Nix kind of thing, or?
I think it's the 2 rounds. I think we have a 2nd round pick versus a 4th round pick. Obviously, a guy that's a 2nd round pick is traditionally going to be prioritized touches more so than a guy that you drafted on day 3.
And we'll be talking about a Patriots player pretty soon.
We shall.
So Theo Johnson, the Darren Waller replacement, goes to the Giants. Tight end.
I love Daniel Bellinger, so I didn't necessarily want to see this, but it actually makes a lot of sense. He reminds me a decent amount of a Darren Waller.
Really?
A guy that is very tall, very long, can go up and get the football. And that was what Darren Waller could do very well. He could go up and get the football. So I can understand why replacing one with the other would make a lot of sense. But it will be interesting to see how they feel about Bellinger versus Johnson, how quickly one gets in the offense. So I don't think it's a great landing spot, but it's not a terrible one.
So, like, what range are you thinking? Like, in
early
tight end
fourth, probably early fourth.
Patriots player alert. Here we go. Javon Baker.
Javon Baker. Yeah.
Javon Baker. Yes.
That's all right. Javon Baker, UCF, goes to the Patriots. We always kind of joke at Dynasty Nerds when two guys are drafted at the same position in the same draft. For whatever reason, it always seems like the second guy turns out to be better for whatever reason. I'm not saying that he will be, but I did actually have a higher nerd score for Baker than I did Polk.
Was it by how much? Was it?
It wasn't a drastic amount. Okay. It wasn't a drastic amount. I think one was like a 70 or a 71, while the other was a 69. So It's not like it was drastically different, but enough.
Yeah.
You know, I could have easily seen them flipped in as far as NFL draft capital goes, and it wouldn't have surprised me. So I am curious to see how this kind of plays out and works out, because for whatever reason, and I know it's not 100% foolproof, but there just does seem to be that weird thing where the guy that goes second just seems to end up being better for some reason.
Less pressure.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, your favorite wide receiver of all time.
There we go. Wide receiver 1.
Gets drafted by the Ravens.
Move over, Marvin Harrison.
Heaven.
Move over, Marvin Harrison.
Tez Walker.
I hate this. I hate this so much.
What pick in the first round are you targeting him for?
He's got to be top 5 for sure.
Yep.
No. I mean, he was, I want to say my personal wide receiver 19. Somewhere around that range, similar to Javon Baker. So it doesn't surprise me that both those guys kind of went in this range here. It seems about the right range, early 4th round. It's not a great landing spot. Baltimore traditionally doesn't have a ton of targets for their wide receivers. So it's a player that I think is similar to a Troy Franklin, just a vertical threat on an offense where the vertical threat isn't going to get as many touches as other teams.
Yeah.
So it's pretty bad. So yeah, he's mid to late 4th.
Okay. Erick All, any thoughts about him?
I like the landing spot.
Yeah.
Bengals is an interesting spot for him. He was a talented tight end that I actually kind of liked his tape. He was just hurt all the time.
Yep.
So color me intrigued.
We'll color him. So this terrible move for fantasy football.
Okay.
Great football move. Okay. Terrible fantasy football move. Jaylen Wright gets drafted by the Dolphins.
Yeah, I was not thrilled to see this.
What does this offense even look like now?
Honestly, I think it's a brilliant move by the Dolphins. Basically, what's going to happen is they are going to replace Raheem Mostert with Jaylen Wright. And it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Very similar players, very electric, good long speed, a little bit on the slight side, but can catch the foot. Like, he's a lot like Raheem Mostert. And so I think it's going – the thing is, I try not to panic too much as a Devon Achane guy, because I do like Devon Achane a lot, because he was always destined to be a guy that's going to be a 12 to 17, 18 touch a game guy. Like, that's where he needs to be. He's not somebody you're running up the middle 20 times a game. You're getting him 10 or so, 8 to 10 rushing plays, and then you want to get him as a receiver on 5 to 7, and that's what you want out of him. So I think this kind of still does that, but what this does for Wright is this makes his ceiling so much lower. I think it limits the potential touches, and even though I think on a per touch basis he could still be very effective on this team, he's not going to touch the field much this year. It's going to be those two that are going to get the bulk of the playing time, and you're hoping, if you're Jaylen Wright, that Mostert does move on or retire or whatever after this season, because I just don't see many playing opportunities early. But I think long term he's the Mostert replacement.
But he's not going to be that goal line back.
No.
That Mostert.
Nope.
I mean, how many touchdowns did Mostert have? Like 21?
It was something like 18, 21. Yeah, it was an absurd number.
So, okay. Yep. Where are you going to draft him? Jaylen Wright?
I think he's going to be early third.
Okay.
Will be the range that I'll be looking at taking him.
AJ Barner from Michigan.
Oh, yeah,
gets
Michigan.
drafted by the Seahawks.
Yeah, he's not a guy that has amazing receiving production, and he was more known for his blocking, which isn't a huge surprise if you're a Michigan guy. But I'll say, at least from specifically the Ohio State-Michigan game, the guy just kept making plays. Like, it seemed like every time they needed to, he made a nice play. He had soft hands over the middle. Like, I like him more as a receiver than I think the scouting report lends itself to.
Okay.
So I am curious to see him as well. I'm not crazy high on him, but he's definitely not somebody that's like, yeah, off my board, an irrelevant tight end. Like, no, I kind of like him a little bit.
So with how these tight ends are looking in tight end premium, are you looking at just spending your fourths on these tight ends, or?
I'd be willing to spend some fourths on some tight ends. I don't like to roster a ton of them.
Yeah.
But I would be willing if there's an upside guy that I like. I like Theo Johnson. I think in the mid third, I would look at Sanders. So I would look at him a little earlier than the rest of this group. But yeah, I have no problem, early to mid fourth looking at these guys.
Well, this is the What's Up Brother pick. Kade Stover gets drafted by the Texans.
That's a good landing spot.
That's a good
He gets reunited with C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Now Dalton Schultz is there, so he's not going to be the guy this year.
Brevin Jordan
is still there as well, yeah. So he's not going to get much run right away, but long term, could be a pretty good asset. Yeah. So it's hard because a lot of these tight ends, I think a lot of them landed in really good spots where there's opportunity for them to do something. So that's what makes this group hard. It's going to be a little bit more of just who did you like? Because most of these guys landed in the fourth round to solid positions. So we're going to have to kind of wait and see.
Okay. The Bucks draft
Bucky
Irving.
Yeah, Bucks get Buck.
Yep.
I wasn't the biggest Bucky Irving guy, but I do like this landing spot. You got Rashad White, that's more of a receiving back, and not that Bucky can't, but I think he looked decent between the tackles, fairly elusive player. So I think they would be a pretty nice 1-2 punch between the two of them. So I'm curious to see how much he gets used, but one of the more favorable landing spots for some of these running backs.
So do you think he could be the one in that 1-2 punch?
I think he's probably the two.
Okay.
I think he's probably the two.
So him or Jaylen Wright?
I'm going to stick with my tape eval and better draft capital, not by much, and I'm going to stick with Jaylen Wright.
Better offense, too.
Better offense, yeah. So maybe not as many opportunities, but everything else is a little bit better.
Okay. Your running back 5 nerd score, Will Shipley, gets drafted by the Eagles.
Yeah, hate it. Don't like it at all.
Kenneth
Gainwell's still there. Saquon Barkley is the only answer they need there. I like the player. I do. I think he's got great hands. I do not like this landing spot.
Boston Scott still?
I think he's gone.
Oh, man.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't there even last year. I think it's been a couple years.
Really? Oh, man. But
they had Rashad Penny. That was who they had there with him.
Yep. Send your seconds for Rashad Penny.
Yeah, Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, and Kenneth Gainwell.
Oh, the Eagles' backfield.
Yeah.
So, Will Shipley, where are you looking at drafting him? Is he kind of just off your board?
He's not off my board. He's talented enough to still be a late third, early fourth round pick.
Okay.
Like the talent is there. I just don't see a ton of opportunity. But a running back that's as talented as he is, I'm willing to take a shot on it more so than just a random tight end or a random wide receiver, just because of how I like to build my teams. Yep. If something were to happen, let's say, Saquon Barkley gets injured, well, now all of a sudden things are really interesting. So, whereas a wide receiver 5 on the team, when do you start them? Like, when do you know when to start them? Because, yeah, maybe they have a game where they break out for a 2-touchdown game, but good luck guessing what week that is.
Yeah.
For running backs, we know more or less when they're going to have volume. Okay, this lead back is out. There's only him and Kenneth Gainwell. He might be a flex option this week. You have a better idea on some of that kind of stuff. So you actually know when to play those guys. And all of a sudden they get a value bump because so-and-so's out. okay, now I can trade this guy who I just drafted in the late third for a late second, and you get an instant value bump and things like that.
That's really smart. Have you ever thought of making videos?
I'll consider it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
So Buffalo Bills draft Ray Davis. How's he looking?
That's a good spot.
Yeah.
It's a really good spot and a really good fit for him as a player. Now, I was not the biggest Ray Davis guy. I didn't love his tape, but he didn't do anything super poorly.
Okay.
I think he's a very physical back that reads tackles really well, and they've needed somebody that can grind out the clock. They've not really had that player. Hopefully, he can do that. I would have loved to have seen them get a Trey Benson or somebody like that, because they've really needed that between the tackles grinder late in games that they just have not had over the years for whatever reason.
A younger Latavius Murray.
Yes. Yeah. Get him when he's 22, not when he's 32.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with 32-year-olds. I'm 33, so
we're pro
32-year-olds. Pro people in general. Yes. Yeah.
We like you.
Appreciate that. So, yeah, so he could quickly find himself as the first and second down back there. I'm curious to see how this affects James Cook. Is James Cook now relegated to more of a third down back, or is James Cook still the lead back and they only use Ray Davis in short area situations? But either way, I think he is going to be more of the goal line back, which does inherently have value.
Awesome. Okay, this guy's name's hard to pronounce.
Okay, do your best.
So I will say 2023 Izzy Abanikanda.
Oh, Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah. Gets drafted by the 49ers.
That's hilarious. And 100% accurate. Yeah. Did you think of that on your own, or did you hear me say that earlier?
I thought of it. I think I've been.
Look at you. I like that.
Oh, probably I stole it from you.
No, we're going to say it was an original thought.
First one.
There you go.
On video, too.
I don't love him.
Ooh.
I don't love what?
I don't love him.
I don't love him. I don't. I mean, I love him as a person.
We're pro people.
We are pro people, but I don't love his ability as a running back. Yep. I love his testing measurables.
Yep.
But I don't love his skill set. Nope. And look, let's be honest. The 49ers, for all of the things that they've done fantastically over the years, there's a reason they traded for Christian McCaffrey, because they've continued to try to draft running backs. And for the most part, they've not had a ton of success. Think of Tyrion Davis-Price. Think of Trey Sermon, guys that got a bunch of hype as a handpicked guy in the third round and just weren't great. And I think Guerendo, the one thing I will give him credit for is this is an offense very much so predicated on speed, and he absolutely has speed. So if there's one way that he could be minorly interesting, it's because of that. But I still think, obviously, it's Christian McCaffrey. He's going to get almost all the work. And then Elijah Mitchell's a very solid backup. Yep. So I just don't know where there's really room for him.
You're taking all the tight ends ahead of him so far?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Speaking of tight end, Jared Wiley, TCU Travis Kelce replacement.
Kansas City, yeah.
Kansas City.
I'll be honest, I need to go back and watch more tape of him. I didn't watch a ton. I know Matt is a big fan of his.
Yep.
And obviously, any tight end in Kansas City all of a sudden is like, oh, maybe he's interesting. Oh, maybe he's interesting. So I'm definitely not going to rule it out, but I haven't watched enough tape to really give a confident answer on Wiley right now.
Okay. Oh, boy. I apologize in advance. Sinone Vakai? See, you didn't even...
Who?
That guy. Running back Utah.
Bro, I don't even know who that is.
What do you think about him?
Who is this guy? Lions are listing him as a running back, although he worked out with the safeties at the combine. So we didn't even know this dude was a running back.
This is live. Caught on camera.
So this is a safety that they're converting to running back?
Yeah, they need more running backs, you know?
He worked out with the safeties. That's the reason we didn't scout this guy.
I was like, I do not remember this guy at all.
I have Sion Vaki. I have no idea who that guy is. I feel somewhat embarrassed saying that, but there's a reason we didn't. He was supposed to be a safety.
Plant your flag. Is he a sleeper?
I mean, he's the deepest of sleepers. I was completely asleep on him.
Is he your Tez Walker for running backs?
No.
He's definitely going to be on the thumbnail now.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the crazy thing: is he got drafted ahead of Braelon Allen.
He got ahead
to the Jets.
of Braelon Allen. Braelon Allen's an interesting name in the fact that he is a solid between the tackles physical grinder. But those guys traditionally don't carry a lot of value if they can't catch the football. At least Ray Davis can catch the football. Braelon Allen, he's behind Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the league. He's not a great pass catcher. I know he was a fun name beforehand, but this is a really going to be a really tough spot for him to actually do anything fantasy relevant. And we can get to their 5th round pick right now too, because then they took a guy very similar in Isaiah Davis in the 5th round. So it doesn't tell me they have a ton of I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it's the same kind of thing that the Packers did a few years back when they took Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams with back-to-back picks, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It's Breece Hall. It's Breece Hall, and they want guys that are hopefully going to be better and healthier than Abanikanda.
Yeah, I like the Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams comp, except I think both of these guys are bad.
Yeah, those two guys are way better.
Yeah. So Braelon Allen or the tight ends? Let's say Stover.
Probably. I'll still take Braelon because if something happens to Breece, he's very interesting then.
Okay.
So I'll take Braelon.
Okay. 49ers.
Okay.
Jacob Cowan.
Yeah, Cowing was an interesting slot guy. Pretty solid hands, quick mover, crazy production. He's gonna have a hard time finding the field unless the 49ers end up dealing someone. So I don't have a ton of confidence that he sees the field anytime soon with the addition of Ricky Pearsall, but I didn't hate his tape. I thought he was a solid slot receiver.
Is he going to get on the field special teams?
Probably.
Colts, one of the biggest winners of the draft, you could say, is Anthony Richardson.
Oh, yes.
Getting all these weapons. Anthony Gould gets drafted by the Colts.
I don't
think of him.
I actually liked Gould Anthony Gould as a player, but he is another one that, we're now in the range where most of these guys are conceivably going to be backing up someone else. And he seems like the logical fit to back up a Josh Downs.
Yep.
Now, another guy that can be useful in special teams, and especially with the new kickoff rule, maybe that's where the role is for him. So I would expect him to be more of a special teams contributor before he's much more than that.
Okay. So my favorite Harry Potter character, Audric Estime, got drafted by the Broncos.
Audric Estime?
Him too.
Yeah.
They both got drafted.
I love the way you say it, though. Who did he get drafted by? I'm too busy laughing.
He will be the new RB1 on the Broncos.
Oh, he definitely won't be because my boy Javonte's there. So yeah, he's another one. Put him in the Braelon Allen category. Very solid between the tackles guy. There wasn't as much burst though as I thought there was with Braelon Allen. He's got pretty solid vision, but once again, it's just a guy that you hope he gets goal line work because otherwise there's really no real path to relevancy. And with as strong as Javonte Williams is, it just wouldn't make sense for them to pull Javonte to put him in. But then again, last year, Sean Payton's usage of the backfield was maddening at times.
Do what he do.
So who knows? But he's not somebody I'm prioritizing. I would probably take Braelon Allen over him.
So quarterback finally.
We got a quarterback.
Finally, quarterback. Spencer Rattler gets drafted by the Saints.
I mean, they're a team that could use a quarterback. They're a team that could use a quarterback, so I don't hate it.
Is this kind of like a Kirk Cousins Penix situations with Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler,
No.
Yeah.
No.
I see the similarities there.
I do not see this at all.
Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams.
Oh, this is why I like doing videos with you, Pete.
I like doing videos with me too.
Spencer Rattler, a lot of the athletic ability. He has not been the most accurate over time, and there has been some questions on his maturity and things like that. Although it seems like he's been better since his early college days. Yeah. He's improved in that area from all reports, but it's just he's a developmental quarterback, but he's one that I would at least say has enough ability to make it happen. There's a lot of developmental guys where they just don't have the tools. Yeah. He has the tools. It's can all of the things between the ears happen the way they need to happen, and can he be accurate enough? Those are two very important things. And they're things that we just don't know right now. But I think he was more than a worthwhile flyer. And for me, I would be willing to take him as a late third-round flyer in my rookie drafts, just on the upside of what a quarterback could be.
Yeah. So ahead of the tight ends, ahead of the running backs?
Right in the...
Ahead of Wright or behind?
Probably behind Wright, probably ahead of Allen.
Okay.
I'll have to do my rankings still, but probably in that range.
Kind of curious, like Davis Mills.
Uh-huh.
Is he kind of a quarterback that was just like he's fine, but he doesn't have that much of a ceiling? Like, would you rather have a quarterback like that or like a quarterback like Rattler?
I mean, I would rather have a quarterback like Rattler just because of the unknown still.
Yeah.
Sometimes, they say that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Well, I think sometimes in the NFL, it's the opposite. Once a guy's already kind of shown you his cards and shown you and had enough time to show you who he is, it's really tough to picture Davis Mills being enough to garner any sort of long-term role in the NFL. But we don't know about Rattler.
Yeah.
So worst case scenario, he falls into Davis Mills' range where he's a backup and he's probably going to be a backup for his entire career.
Yeah.
But best case scenario is he sneaks in a couple opportunities, he plays well with them, and he does like what Sam Howell did last year and then gets himself a job for a year. Now, obviously, you want more than just one season, but even that, now you have trade opportunity. You at least got a year's worth out of him, and then some guys like that just stick. Dak Prescott was that way. He was a late-round quarterback that stuck. Russell Wilson was. Kirk Cousins was. Like, there are plenty of quarterbacks that are later-round guys that play well. Brock Purdy, obviously, that play well enough to just stick, and that's what you hope you're getting out of a guy like that.
Love it. Ainias Smith goes to the Eagles.
Yeah, I like Ainias Smith. I like him quite a bit. Another guy that I think will be a special teams person. I think he is somebody that could end up sneaking into a slot role this year, maybe as their third receiver. Now, that doesn't mean as much on this team because obviously Smith and Brown are going to be getting crazy targets, and when they're not, crazy targets. When they're not, Goddard's going to be getting targets.
Shipley.
And when he's not, Saquon Barkley's going to be getting targets. So best case scenario is like fifth option on the team. And that's if everything falls right. So, but he's somebody that I really liked his college tape. He dealt with some injuries. The path is cloudy for long-term relevance because both of these guys just signed new deals. But I think there's enough there that I'm at least willing to bet on his ability more so than I am some other guys.
Okay. Your Browns draft Donovan Peoples-Jones. Jamari Thrash. How do you feel about that?
They're very different players than those guys. I get what you're saying, though. The Browns do have a tendency to be poor decision makers when it comes to wide receiver. Thrash is interesting. Thrash was one of the best route runners I graded in this class. Fantastic route runner. Very, very sudden in his movement. Could create separation. His big issue was drops. He had very unreliable hands.
So he could get open, but catching the ball was a whole nother thing.
Correct. And he wasn't like a go long, deep speed guy. He was working more short to intermediate range. But, man, he could break some guys off with his route running. Just so incredibly sudden. Now, the one potential pass I will give him is he was dealing with a wrist injury all season. Okay. So how much were those drops because of that? Or is it a deficiency in his game? That's what I don't know for sure. But he is at the very least very interesting.
Okay. And there's not very many good route runners on the Browns. I mean, it's Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, guys that have no idea what they're doing out there from that
100%.
perspective.
So I say this not ironically,
Okay.
but your dude,
Okay.
Rasheen Ali,
Heyo.
gets drafted to the Derrick Henry Ravens.
My first initial reaction when this happened was, dang it.
I mean, it was rerun, right?
Right. It was Spears from
Tajay
last year.
Spears, Derrick Henry.
Which is funny because I remember saying on the pod, there are some flashes of Spears in his game. So it is funny. My boy Kyle Yates even texted me. He's like, Derrick Henry just can't avoid Tajay Spears, can he?
Yep.
Now, obviously, I think Spears is a significantly better player. And the draft capital showed that between the two guys. But for that moment where I was like, oh, I hate that. Then I got to, well, obviously he's not going to play much this year, but how much longer does Derrick Henry have? So of all of the spots, it's actually not terrible. It's a team that likes to run the football a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a running back ahead of him that has a short shelf life. So it actually could have been a lot worse. So he's moved up into my probably early third range.
Okay.
Yeah, he's moved into he was my RB5 as far as my nerd score went. So
Ooh, okay. Yep.
I'm interested in him more. Now, that being said, you probably won't have to take him that early. You can probably wait till the end of the third, beginning of the fourth to take him.
Yeah.
But I would be willing to take him as early as the early third.
Okay. So let's just do kind of I'll just list off some names.
Let's
You
do
tell
the
me to
next
stop.
one, and I'm
Okay.
totally good with that.
Okay.
Because the next one was Tyrone Tracy
Yep.
from
To
the Giants. Great landing spot, and a player that I think his tape score was my sixth best. So that is one of the best situations that any of these guys at running back have landed in, because Cowboys didn't draft anyone at the running back position. So weird. So weird. Chargers didn't do anything of note. They might have taken someone in the seventh, but they didn't do anything of note. So Tracy was one of my favorite player landing spots at the running back position. Very interested. Another guy that I'd be willing to take as early as the early third.
So both back-to-back picks, the highest drafted player ADP-wise in this video.
Other than probably Troy Franklin. Ooh. And it's going to be close between. I'm going to have a hard time with Jaylen Wright and those two guys. I'm going to have to figure out where I stand on those guys. They'll all be grouped very closely together. But yeah, other than those two, they'll be ahead of basically everyone else.
Okay. Killian Robinson goes to the Jags.
Mm-hmm.
Bub Means.
My boy Bub.
Saints. Jordan Travis, Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Davis, Jets.
We talked about him, yeah.
Let me get over to the
sixth
round.
Is that it for the fifth? Okay, all right. We can go to the sixth real quick, but looking through it, there wasn't much in the sixth and seventh.
Malik Washington.
I do like Malik. It is an interesting landing spot with the Dolphins. He's a guy that I think could do some things in the slot there. They moved Tyreek around. They moved Jalen Waddle around. So we'll have to see exactly where he ends up, but I don't hate it.
Johnny Wilson, Eagles.
Yeah.
Hakeem
Butler, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Like, they have a tendency to draft these big wide receivers that convert to tight ends that don't do anything.
Jace McClain, Falcons. Casey Washington, Falcons. Joe Milton, Patriots.
Whoa, new quarterback. Watch out, Drake May.
Yep.
Second guy drafted.
Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins, Drake May, Joe Milton.
I'm not worried about Joe Milton.
No, and I think we're looking pretty good. If you want to hear specific thoughts, comment below.
Comment below. Let us know who we missed, who you want to talk about on day 3. I think we covered all of the truly relevant guys. Everyone left are guys that are going to be taken in the 5th round of your rookie draft or later. So I think we touched on all the relevant ones, but some interesting guys, some interesting landing spots. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to start my rookie drafts.
And we have so much content coming out.
We do.
Breaking down We have a mock draft coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nerd.